Opening scene sees a boy in a park playing with a balloon in the daytime smiling and laughing. Opening scene sees a boy in a park playing with a balloon in the daytime smiling and laughing. Dark man figure walking through the park and walking towards the young boy playing in the park. The dark man shadow figure pulls out a needle and points it at the boy's ballon and pops it. All of a sudden the boy starts to cry. The dark man pulls out another balloon and says, "Boy, don't worry, I have another balloon," and hands it over to the boy. The boy starts to blow up the balloon with air, and the dark man pulls out a needle from his pocket and injects the child with the needle and hands the boy a stick of chewing gum. The dark man walks away and takes out his phone and dials a number and says, "Plan A has been completed, go to the next plan stage," and he hangs up the phone. Scene pans back to the boy in the park and shows him holding his stomach, and he starts to cough. Blood drips from his mouth as he falls to the ground in great pain. The boy screams, "Help me!" In a matter of minutes the boy closes his eyes and lays on the ground not moving. Blood comes his eyes, nose, ears and mouth. A boy laying in a pool of blood with a balloon tied to his finger waving in the sky. Within minutes ambulances, fire trucks, SWAT trucks and one dirty police car swarm into the park and all start driving to the playground and all stop near the body of the boy in the park laying on the ground in a pool of blood. Detective J. Phillips opens the dirty police car and walks over to the boy on the floor and says, "Do not touch him or go near him without the hazmat team to clean and cover up this whole area." Detective J. Phillips says to himself, "Damn, too late, this serial killer struck again with this little boy as his next victim." Every victim he leaves a ballon and a needle. Detective J. Phillips has been looking for this serial killer for over a year and this was his 9th victim. He has no clues or evidence to find out who this person is. Detective J. Phillips picks up his phone and calls his sergeant at the precinct. "Hello boss, another victim from this serial killer has struck again. We are coming a 10 to 20 block radius looking for clues." He hangs up the phone and walks back into his car and drives off, leaving the other personnel to finish the job. Detective J. Phillips drives to the precinct and opens the door and walks towards the laboratory and sees Agent Smith looking through microscopes. Detective J. Phillips says to Agent Smith, "We got another victim, a 9-year-old boy in a park. What good news you have for me?" Agent Smith says, "I have been looking how and why this person is killing his victims with diseases or viruses. He is a very sick individual and needs a lot of help." Detective J. Phillips says, "I know he is very not normal, but where can I continue looking for clues and evidence to stop this killer before he strikes again?" Agent Smith says, "You must check out where they sell needles and tubes and gloves to the general public." "How about a pharmacy?" Detective J. Phillips opens the door of the laboratory and walks out and goes into his dirty car and drives off. Detective picks up his phone and calls the chief of police in the precinct and says, "Sir, I am going to check out all the pharmacies in this area and have a team check out all the other in the city. We are getting close to capturing this serial killer." Detective checks dozens of pharmacies and sees one that has a party center next to it that sells balloons and gifts, so he said, "This will be the last pharmacy I will check before going to the bar to have a drink." Detective J. Phillips walks into the party center and sees a woman at the register and walks over to her. Detective J. Phillips says, "Hello, how have you been doing this week? Was it busy and did you sell a lot of flowers or balloons for this summer's 4th of July block party?" The register woman says, "I sold a lot of flowers and plenty of gifts to over dozens of people, but not a lot of balloons." "Why not?" says Detective J. Phillips to the register woman. The register woman says to Detective J. Phillips, "This guy bought all the red balloons, so no one wants to buy just blue and white balloons for Independence Day this year." Detective J. Phillips says, "Who was it?" The register woman said, "The pharmacist next door. I have a crush on him. Give him these flowers, tell him it is from me, thanks honey." Detective J. Phillips leaves the party center and walks into the pharmacy next door. Detective J. Phillips walks over to the dark male figure behind the counter and says to him, "These flowers are from the woman next door." Pharmacy guy name tag reads Blood on his shirt. Detective J. Phillips says, "Is that your real name, Blood?" Dr. Blood says, "Yes, my real name is Blood, but you can call me Bobby. Is that okay with you, officer?" Detective J. Phillips says, "How do you know I am a cop, buddy?" Bobby Blood pharmacist throws something towards Detective J. Phillips' eyes and runs toward the exit door in the back. Detective J. Phillips shields his face and blocks all the liquid that was thrown at him by Bobby Blood, and his hands start to burn. He feels the flesh falling, so he puts both hands into the ice cream freezer and the swelling starts to stop hurting him, and Detective J. Phillips runs out the back exit chasing him. Bobby Blood runs down the alley and dives into his front seat of his car and starts the engine. All of a sudden the door opens and Detective J. Phillips grabs Bobby Blood and throws her onto the giant green dumpster, and they begin to fight and talk at the same time. Bobby Blood says, "How did you find me, copper?" Detective J. Phillips says, "You left so many clues and evidence, just a matter of time. You are a very sick individual and you must be put away for life." Bobby Blood screams, "I am going to kill you, and I have a bomb in this city and will infect this city with a deadly virus called Koved 18 and all will die in 18 hours. Detective J. Phillips says, "Not if I can help it." Detective J. Phillips pulls out his gun and points it at Bobby Blood. Detective J. Phillips says, "Who has the virus detonator? Give me their name and location now. You have 3 seconds to tell me." All of a sudden Bobby Blood dives in Detective J. Phillips and grabs the wrist of the detective as they both fall to the ground, and the gun goes off, hitting Bobby Blood in the skull, almost killing him instantly, and Bobby Blood starts to crawl to the flowers and stares at them before he dies of his wounds. Detective J. Phillips stands back up and looks at the dead body of the serial killer Bobby Blood and sees the note on the flowers. Detective J. Phillips reads the note and it says, "Stage 2 will be completed in 17 hours. Love always, Betty Blood." Detective J. Phillips realizes the woman in the party center store is the wife of the serial killer Bobby Blood, so he runs back towards the back entrance of the pharmacist office, but it is locked. Then he starts to run towards the back entrance of the party center store, and it also locked. Detective J. Phillips runs to the front of the building to see Betty Blood sticking up a middle finger at him on a city bus with the detonator in her hand, and the bus starts driving away. All of a sudden Detective J. Phillips runs toward his dirty cop car and starts the engine and grabs his phone and calls the chief of police and says, "Stop all buses, we have another terrorist on the bus number B36. Detective J. Phillips races his car behind the bus, and all of a sudden the bus stops in front of him and he crashes into the rear of the bus. The bus driver opens both doors and all the passengers are running outside in panic away from the bus, but Betty Blood is still in the bus looking for the detonator she just dropped onto the floor. Detective J. Phillips runs into the bus and grabs Betty Blood before she can pick up the detonator and stuns her with his stun gun, and she falls to the ground and closes her eyes. Detective J. Phillips puts the handcuffs on her and brings her to jail in his precinct. Detective J. Phillips sits on his desk and reads the newspaper and reads the front page. Local cop saves the city but gets fired for reckless driving. Detective J. Phillips walks out of the precinct, goes into his dirty cop car and drives home to watch a movie on his new big screen TV. Detective J. Phillips connects the TV adapter and drops a wire onto the floor, trying to plug it into the wall outlet, and all of a sudden the doorbell rings. Detective J. Phillips opens the door and sees the mailman hand him an envelope and says, "Happy Independence Day, enjoy your weekend." Detective J. Phillips opens the envelope and there is a symphony condolence card with his name on it and begins to read it. "Hello Detective, this is the Blood Organization Corporation. We control the Koved-18 virus and we have the antidote as well. You will never stop us and we just infected you. Goodbye, have a nice life, see you in hell." All of a sudden Detective J. Phillips falls to the ground and crawls to the cabinet, looks up at the ceiling and closes his eyes.